Welcome to a Wednesday Mailbag, where today we answer your questions about the Dallas Stars and plenty more next on Locked On Stars.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Happy Wednesday and welcome to this mailbag edition of Locked On Stars, where today I will answer your questions about the Dallas Stars. And thank you so much for sending in those questions via the YouTube community tab. By the way, I would like to do this a bit more regularly moving forward. So if you did not get those questions in on today's episode, be sure to next time, and I will ask for them on the community tab. Otherwise, you can reach out to me on Twitter as well. I usually respond in a pretty timely manner via Joey the Jet 19. So let's have some fun. I would love to be a bit more interactive with you, the wonderful listener and everydayer of Locked On Stars. So sit back, relax. I'll give you a shout out as well, and you could be featured on one of these episodes. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sport stops sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So we begin with Dejan Jojovic, 4467. I apologize if I completely butchered that, but they ask, how can we as Stars fans get excited about this roster for the upcoming season? Most feel we took a step back, while others say that we picked up Moneyball type acquisitions. Your take? And I believe the article that you are referencing is one by David Castillo. It is a fantastic article, and please go take your time to read it. It's available on dmagazine.com, where he talks about the Stars acquisitions as Moneyball type acquisitions, players that maybe looked over but actually are an improvement over others from a season ago. Lyubushkin and Dumba are the two main culprits in this article. And I do want to preface, there is so much to be excited about this Dallas Stars roster. And I know I've been a bit bleak after free agency, but look around and see how much talent Dallas has, especially up front. And they're still bringing back Miro Heiskanen and Thomas Harley, who was an exquisite pairing last season. But then you have a player like Maverick Bourque, who you're going to see in the NHL on an everyday basis, and he looks every bit a part of it. You have Logan Stankoven, who we just got a taste of last season. 24 games, he scored 6 goals. He's on pace for about 25 to 30 in a full season. You're going to get a full 82 out of Logan Stankoven if he's healthy. You still have Jason Robertson, who is not far removed from over 110 points and back-to-back 40-goal seasons. Roope Hintz, if he's healthy, is going to be someone to mess with. And then you have Wyatt Johnston, right? There are so many names and so many qualities about this Dallas Stars team, and I don't want to give the impression that they're just going to completely crater, because that's not going to be that's not going to happen. They are going to be a Stanley Cup contender here for the next few seasons, in my opinion, and they will be a really, really solid team again this season, although they still need to make some acquisitions probably at the trade deadline to make them a true Stanley Cup contender. As built right now, I don't know if they're quite there to at least get over the hump of the Western Conference Final, and that's okay. That's my opinion, and who knows? That's why they play the games, right? But to reference back to this article by David Castillo, it looks at some of the deeper numbers, specifically SG, or synthetic goals, which is courtesy of Micah Blake McCurdy, aims to describe SG isolates a player's impact by giving weight to even strength offense, defense, competition, score effects, teammates, home ice advantage as teams experience a major uptick in offense in the second period when playing at home. And it shows the difference of total SG between 2023 and 24, and now heading into 24-25. The Dallas Stars' total SG in 23-24 was 48 0.7. The total SG for 24-25 as it currently stands is 49.1. And there's a few reasons for that. One of those is Joe Pavelski. And Pavelski really took a step back, at least in the postseason last year. He was a minus 8.1 SG. So they think that's a big addition via subtraction. You bring up Maverick Bourque, they have him at plus 0.5. So a slight uptick there. And Lyubushkin and Dumba are honestly not that bad of players. So it does give the Stars a bit of an uptick. Does that mean they're going to match what they did last season, which was the second best regular season in franchise history? I'm not quite there yet. I don't really see it. But I will say, if you look at the Dallas Stars on opening night, even last year, Miro and Suter was your top pairing, Harley and Hakanpää, and then you had Lindell and Lundqvist. Is it really that big of a step back from what could be Miro, Lyubushkin, Harley, Dumba, Lindell, Lundqvist? You could argue that. Lyubushkin and Hakanpää are pretty similar. Dumba and Tanev are obviously a really big gap between those two players. But if you're looking pre-Tanev, it really isn't that huge of a drop-off, you would think. And look, Dumba and Lyubushkin could really find themselves once again here in Dallas. I don't know if I'm going to put my money on them really hitting their stride, especially having Dumba in your top four, even Lyubushkin being on your top pairing. I don't know if Dumba and Lyubushkin are suited for the roles the Stars need them to play this season. That's where I have my reservations. They are not terrible players, although they have their weaknesses. Dumba at 30 years of age really took a step back the past few seasons. He's taken over 80 penalty minutes in 3 straight years. And that's something you have to live with. He's aggressive. He's physical. And Lyubushkin is sort of the same way. So you kind of have to take the good and the bad with each of these players. And I'm really looking at the positives with Lyubushkin and how he played with Morgan Rielly in Toronto. Could he really be a perfect match made in heaven with Miro? Maybe he could. Or maybe it's just getting Miro on his strong side finally, where he can dance and do what he does best and be a bit more offensively inclined. Is Dumba and Harley going to be a match made in heaven? I don't know. When I see it, I'll believe it. That's kind of where I stand, and there's a reason you got to play 82 games. There's a regular season for a reason, and I think Dallas is going to be right in the thick of things in the Central once again, but I'm not convinced this is a Stanley Cup contender with this back end. Their forwards, I have no issue with, and that's what you should be really excited about. His offense can be really deadly and lethal, and I thought for large parts of last season, they outscored their weaknesses on defense. And they'll probably be able to do that for most of next season, especially when you're going to have a healthy Otter. And Ottinger did not have a great regular season by any stretch, but this is a full offseason for him where he's going to be fully healthy heading into next year. And look, this team can easily win the Central Division once again. I do think they took a tiny minor step back even pre-Tanev with the acquisitions of Lyubushkin and Dumba. But that's sort of the thesis from David Castillo about this Stars team could actually be better, at least when you look at some of the advanced analytics. And I don't know if I'm quite there yet. I'm really going to have to use the eye test in the first few months of the season, and I could get back to you on that question. But as many say, there's a reason you play the games, and I would love to be wrong, but they certainly didn't improve from where they left off in the Western Conference Final. So very good question, and another great article from David Castillo. Please go read it in its entirety on dmagazine.com. I certainly don't do it justice, but I assume that is the article you're referencing. We move over from Craig from Vancouver, Canada. A ton of Stars fans in British Columbia, longtime Stars and North Stars fan. My question is, do you think Nil will re-sign Ben after next season? He'll be 35 and his $9.5 million will be off the books. what's next for Ben. So I sort of answered this in yesterday's episode. Please go take a listen to that as well, where I talk about what does a 35-year-old Ben and Sagan contract look like. Jamie's going to be really interesting because I truly believe Ben can get somewhere between 5.5 and 6 million on his next contract from someone other than the Dallas Stars. What Dallas is going to have to ask themselves, is he a part of your future? And as we stand right now, I don't think he is. He is a captain, the longest tenured captain in Dallas Stars history, and there is some loyalty there, but he's going to have to take a pretty massive pay cut. And I think he's going to have to take at most a 3-year deal. And I think Jim Nill and company are pretty hesitant now on their 35-plus-year-old contracts after what they have kind of been through with Ryan Suter. They were already out on Tanev, even though that situation was very, very different. And we've seen teams and examples over the past few seasons. Look at Stamkos just this past year with Tampa Bay, and they let him walk. And there are plenty of other instances, Joe Pavelski in San Jose, they let him walk. And that could certainly be the case. Where I stand, I don't see why you bring him back, because at 9.5 million can be used for a lot of good pieces to surround Wyatt Johnston, Logan Stankoven, Maverick Bork. I say it ad nauseum, but that's $9.5 million you can use in the open market to go get players to surround your young core to keep the window wide open. And I don't know if Jamie Benn is a part of their plans at this point in time, at least in the near future. But I will say this. I think Ben wants to retire a Dallas Star. I think he wants to stay here. And business is business at the end of the day. I don't know where I truly stand on him coming back or not. If I gave you a percentage of would Jamie Benn re-sign, I'm somewhere at 75% right now, 25. 75 to 25% that he re-signs in Dallas, just because I think he wants to be here and he would be willing to take a pay cut. And look, he's a productive player. He has been over the past few seasons. And he was, frankly, one of their best stars. I think behind Wyatt Johnston, you could put him right up there, at least in the top 4 of the best stars in the postseason. He does provide a very quality game in the postseason. I think a ton of teams would take a chance on that, even at 36 and 37 years of age. He's getting stronger, it feels like, to some degree. But it's going to have to come at a massive pay cut here in Dallas, and he's going to want to do that. We will see. But that's kind of where I stand. I think 75-25, he does resign just because of the loyalty. And I think he wants to be here. But we'll see how it all plays out. And I had someone else on Twitter reach out to me. This was John Reich, who asked me, what are your thoughts on a Ben trade midway through the season? I would put that at 0%. I don't see that in a million years unless there's a caveat, unless Dallas just completely craters and they're completely out of it and irrelevant. But that also comes with the exception, who's going to take on a $9.5 million cap hit? You're probably going to have Dallas retain some of that salary if you're going to take on a contract like Ben. Even if it is just for one season, I think teams would just hold off, because you're not really going to ask that 9.5 cap hit as a rental. If it's like Chris Tanev, where Dallas had 75%, I think it was, or upwards of 70% of his contract retained, that's a different question. But that's a tough cap hit to take if you're looking for a few months out of your season from Jamie Benn. But I don't see that happening at all, unless maybe Dallas completely craters and they're just out of the playoff conversation. They just want to get rid of some money. But that's a pretty hard contract to move at this point in time. Alrighty, we just got to 2 questions, but they're phenomenal ones, and I spent a little bit longer on them than I previously thought. We'll continue to get into more here in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. Stars fans, with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to take your car to the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. We continue here on this mailbag edition of Locked On Stars, and we will go ahead and go to Greg Kemper, 8196. Roope Hintz is under contract until 2030, just finished what should have been the peak of his prime, and we're already seeing a 10-point drop from last year with 7 more games played and a 2-goal in a 15-game playoff run. How do you see his contract aging, and do the Stars have a player that will be able to lead the core to cup contention as a top-line center in his place? To answer your first or your second part of that question, they already have their top-line center in place as a backup, and that is Wyatt Johnston. A 30-goal season a year ago. He's just 21 years of age. He is your backup, and I think he's going to be considered a top 5 center iceman in a few years within the National Hockey League. I think that highly of Wyatt Johnston. He is incredible, a two-way player. There are a lot of people that throw out the comparisons to Patrice Bergeron. That may be a bit heinous because Bergeron is a certified Hall of Famer and Cup champion, but he has those sort of characteristics in his game, and he's a fantastic player. So the Stars are fine, especially down the middle. When you look at Roope, he's just 27 years of age. And yeah, Wyatt Johnston is going to be your future top-line center that can carry the Stars for multiple seasons. How do I see his contract aging? Look, Roope is an absolute steal at $8.45 million. And I can understand some of the concerns with the point drop-off a year ago, but maybe some of that was due to Joe Pavelski. And really, that top line in general just never really got going for a large part of last season. If I'm correct, the top line could be Robertson, Hintz, and Johnston next year for a full 82-game stretch. That could be one of the best lines in all of hockey. And I think you're going to see an uptick in Roope's offense. Pavelski, Robo, and Hintz just could never get flowing like they did in previous seasons for whatever reasons. I think with Pavelski coming out due to retirement, you're going to see an uptick in offense from Roope Hintz. And for the most part, his contract is going to age perfectly well. Among forwards, he's like 25th, the 25th biggest cap hit. And you have no problem with an 8.45 cap hit. The concern with Roope and where I can see his contract aging badly is the playoffs and how healthy he can be, because in 6 seasons, he's only played more than 64 times. He's never played a full 82. He was out at the beginning of last season. He missed opening night, but more importantly, he's missed multiple playoff games over the past few seasons. You look at, obviously, last year, 19 playoff games. He missed 5 of them. And yeah, he had 5 goals. We had 15 games, and he missed 4 playoff games this season. He had 2 goals in those 15 games. How healthy is he going to be come playoff time every year? That's your concern. And that's where I can see the contract kind of aging badly. But even then, it really is a steal because you're getting a number 1 center. He truly is one of the top centers in the game. He's not the tier of McKinnon and Crosby and McDavid, of course, but he's just in the tier below, and he's a fantastic player. And what you don't always get in offense with Roope, he's going to make up for it in the defensive zone. He's a fantastic two-way player. I said it ad nauseum last year, how many times he ties up a forward in front of his own net and he just wins that battle in front of Ottinger. You can't count on your hands. He does it every game, and sometimes that gets lost in translation, but at the same time, you're looking for offense out of him. And he missed multiple playoff games in 2018-19. You look at the series against Calgary, he was out in that game 7. Having Roope would have been a big help in that game 7 against Calgary. Maybe that goes another way. That's where the majority of my concerns lie with Roope Hintz. It almost seems like you just have to factor in he's going to miss 2 to 3 playoff games a year. I wouldn't knock him on this last postseason because he was dealing with an injury and probably a bit worse than they really let on. And he never seemed like himself for most of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I wouldn't knock him too much on that, but at the same time, that just seems to be what comes with the package of Roope Hintz. How healthy is he going to be at the end of the season? But I don't think you're going to have any problem with Roope Hintz being under contract until it expires at the age of 34. All righty, moving on. This comes from a user. It literally is named user, so we'll just get on to this. What is the Stars' plan to replace the 30 to 40 goals that we will be missing next year with the departures of Pavelski, Faksa, and Smith? Great question, and I think the Stars have a great backup plan in place. They did not have a fantastic backup plan when Chris Tanev left or buying out Ryan Suter for the most part, but they do have a solid backup plan. And as I alluded to a bit earlier, you're going to get a full 82 of Logan Stankoven. 6 goals in 24 games. That's on pace for hovering around 27 to 30 goals in a full 82 game season. We obviously seen what he can do. He is ready to play every day. Maverick Bourque is your other guy that's going to step up and really elevate his play. You're looking at the AHL MVP where he scored 26 goals in 71 games. I think he's going to have some pop, and him playing alongside Stankoven is only going to help. Stankoven really is, I think, more of a playmaker than he is a goal scorer, and him and Maverick Bourque being reunited is going to be a ton of fun to watch. So look for Maverick Bourque to replace some of those scoring woes that you may be missing with Pavelski, Faksa, and others. You shouldn't be too concerned about replacing Faksa and Smith. I know they had decent goal-scoring years, especially Smith. He got double digits in goals this past year, but Dallas is going to be fine up front, and they could be even better just because I think they're going to be more consistent because they're not going to be dealing with having to worry about Pavelski, trying to get him going. For large parts of last season, if you recall, it just seemed like they were trying to get guys going. Johnston had that giant slump where he only had, I think, 2 goals in 20 games. Pavelski had a lengthy drought, one of the longest in his career, even though he still put up 65 points. He had a really, really tough goal-scoring drought. The Stars have a great backup plan in place, and they should have no problem replacing those 30 to 40 goals. And that's where a lot of the positives come in with Dallas. Can they outscore their problems, which I think are going to arise with some of their free agent acquisitions? That is to be determined. But that's where I stand on the Dallas Stars offense at this point in time. Alrighty, let's get into a few more of your questions. Thank you so much. Once again, please be sure to get in your questions for the next mailbag via the YouTube community tab. That's where I'll ask for your questions. You can always hit me up on Twitter as well, and I will integrate them all together. We'll wrap it up on the other side in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up any bets I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. The hockey is obviously over, but we're in the dog days of summer. We have the MLB All-Star Game right around the corner. The Euro final is on Sunday. England somehow made it to the final against Spain. You have the Copa America as well. You have the British coming up in just a few weeks. There are a ton of sports going on, even though it's not hockey. There's a lot of things for you to get in on this summer and make some money. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Major League Baseball. So our next question here on this mailbag edition of Locked On Stars comes from General Luke Productions. What does the Victory Plus announcement mean for other DFW teams like the Mavs and Rangers? Do you think there's a chance they follow suit? Of course, Victory Plus was announced earlier this week, a brand new streaming service where you can watch Stars games for free next season if you're in the Dallas Stars region, which I think is a gigantic win for Stars fans and for hockey fans everywhere. However, it's a very complicated situation. My very grand, very surface level opinion on how this will affect teams like the Rangers and Mavs is I think at some point they will follow suit, but it is really, really complicated because regional sports networks were extremely lucrative, especially for a team like the Texas Rangers. When they initially inked that deal with Bally Sports, which I believe was for 7 to 8 years and like $500 million, it was something crazy, a ton of money. Because look at the ad revenue for 162 games a summer. That is a lot of money the Rangers were taking in. And by doing this, by the way, the Stars are going to take a hit financially. They're not going to make a ton of money in their first 3 years, maybe 4 years. It could take some time. We'll see how it all plays out, but it's not necessarily just a cut and dry, well, this is going to be great, and we're going to make a ton of money on the backside of this. It's a bit more complicated than that. And even if you look back to this last offseason for the World Series Texas Rangers, they couldn't sign Jordan Montgomery back. They wanted to re-sign him, but part of the issue with re-signing him was they didn't know what TV deal they were going to have. And they figured out in February, and had to be actually approved by the Supreme Court to allow Bally, that went into bankruptcy, to have their games on Bally for this summer, along with the Twins and Guardians. I think at some point, if we're looking at the MLB, and I know we're really getting sidetracked here and not talking about the Stars as much, but I love local DFW sports. So it really is an interesting topic when you look at TV deals and everything going on. The Padres were a team that left Bally, and they're doing Padres TV via MLB.TV. And I think that's where a lot of teams are probably going to end up heading. And there is no blackouts if you're in the San Diego region. You pay, I think it's $55 a year, and you get all the San Diego Padres games. I think that's sort of where the MLB will go. The Mavs, I don't quite know, just with the NBA and their TV deal. They're still working one out with NBC. Obviously, that has nothing to do with the local market, but it will be really interesting because, as I mentioned, there's a lot of money, and Texas was able to sign players like Simeon and Seager because they had the security of that huge contract with Bally that actually allows you a bit more money in your pockets to give to big free agents, right? And you saw it just this past year. They weren't able to re-sign Montgomery, and that was something Montgomery and his camp had to play into their contract conversations. Like, are you not going to be showing me on TV? Am I not going to get publicity on Bally, every time I pitch? That kind of played into his decision on where he wanted to sign. So it really is really intriguing, but I think a huge win for Stars fans. And number one, it just seems like this is the trend. It's going towards streaming. and there's no extra fees. I don't think any Stars fans or really any casual hockey fan that watches the Stars every once in a while is going to have any issue with downloading another app. Excuse me, I dropped my phone. Another app on your phone or your TV to watch the Dallas Stars. We've all become kind of brainwashed into it. Maybe not brainwashed, but it's the norm, right? You have to download apps. At least this time, you don't have to require an extra fee like other teams, right? So that will be nice. Absolutely. For sure. Okay, a last one to finish up on from P. Vrun Truni. Are there any upcoming prospects that could be a surprise for us after a disappointing free agency? Obviously, Maverick Bourque is a prospect, but I'm sure you're well aware of what he is capable of, along with Logan Stankoven. And I don't know if there's any prospects that are going to have huge impacts next season because Dallas is pretty deep up front. Obviously, Liam Bichsel is an exciting one, and this may be a bit of a cop-out answer, but he is a real exciting player. At 20 years old, he's 6'6", 234 pounds. He brings some size and physicality to the back end, but I will hamper some expectations. He's 20 years of age. He will probably begin in the AHL this season, and he hasn't played a ton of games in North America. He started here last year and, of course, went back to Sweden and played pretty well there, had a great playoff run with Rögle BK, but he is 20 years of age. He will need some seasoning. I think maybe a full year in the AHL, but I will say the best case scenario for the Dallas Stars next season is if Bichsel is ready to take control and be your fifth, even a top four defense. I mean, that is best case scenario. If he can fit into your top four, man, you have to like where Dallas is going to be at on the back end. If he can give you valuable and productive minutes, that is a huge hit for the Dallas Stars next season. I just don't know if he's really going to have that big of an impact next season, just because they brought in players like Lyubushkin and Dumba, who are veterans. And as we know, Pete DeBoer and most coaching staffs will fall on the sword with their veterans, with guys that have experience in the National Hockey League. But some other names I want to throw out there to keep an eye on, especially during preseason or as the 13th to 14th forward for the Stars, is Matej Blumel. A 30-goal season, 31 goals. He led the Texas Stars last season. We've got a taste of him a couple of times. He looks to be a really, really nice player, and he could be a guy that makes his way up to the big club every once in a while. Kyle McDonald is another one in his rookie season last year with Texas. 15 goals, 11 assists for 26 points. He was a really interesting player last preseason, and really liked his game. Saw short bursts of it, but he's pretty big. A good sized winger to just keep an eye on in the future in general. But Kyle McDonald had a nice rookie season with Texas. That's another name I like, just to throw in the hat without giving you some of the cop-out answers like Bourque and Stankoven, but plenty to be excited about in the farm system for Dallas. And Texas has been a monster here over the past few seasons with a couple of deep postseason runs. So we'll see how they fare next season, because they are losing some pretty talented players in Bourque and Stankoven for a full year. Alrighty, that'll wrap up today's Wednesday mailbag edition of Locked On Stars. Thank you for your cooperation and sending in those questions. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I want to do this a bit more often, maybe weekly, bi-weekly, just to hear your thoughts, because you guys have wonderful points and it leads to really interesting discussions. So I would like to be as interactive as possible with all you everydayers out there. So be on the lookout for a next mailbag. I'll be sure to promote it on Twitter and all that good stuff, so you can get those questions in, and we'll answer as many as possible. I will be having an interview, not an interview, so to speak, but a guest tomorrow. Sam Nessler is coming back on the show. So for any of the questions I did not get to, I'll post some of those to Sam as well, just to make sure we get to as many as we can. And that will be out tomorrow and maybe Friday, depending on how long we go. It may be a 2-part episode. So be on the lookout for that as well. Happy Wednesday, Stars fans. Have a great rest of your day. Apologize for a later episode today. Crazy day. We'll be back to normal scheduled programming in the next couple days. Have a wonderful rest of your night, and we'll see you tomorrow. So long, Stars fans.